figure out whether we're venting or gossiping, the first thing we gotta do is check our intention. We have to step back and ask this. Am I honestly expressing frustration to process, pray, and get my head right? Or am I using my words to throw shade like it's a group chat confessional, even if I won't admit it out loud? The Bible says it plain. All the ways of a man are clean in his own eyes, but the Lord weigheth the spirits. This verse hits because what it shows is that it's easy for us to lie to ourselves. We can always call it keeping it real. We can always call it a rant. But God sees what's really fueling our words. Venting can be healthy, but that's when the goal is growth and not gossip. But gossip, it's not honesty, it's hostility in disguise. Let's be real. If I'm telling you about somebody just to make me look right and them look wrong, that's not venting, that's vengeance. Venting should let us breathe. All gossip does is spread smoke. If our words are helping us at the expense of someone else, it might be time to check our heart. Because God's not just listening to what we say, He's watching why we said it. The second thing to check when we're trying to stay on the venting side of the line is emphasis. Venting is real, it's raw, unfiltered, it's honest. Sometimes it's just coming straight from the head and the heart. And that's okay because our feelings aren't wrong. But just because our emotions are real doesn't mean our focus is in the proper place. When we're opening up to someone, whether it's about a breakup, a job issue, feeling benched on the team, the goal isn't to unload everything. The goal is to process the problem. That means the conversation should start and stay centered on what's happening on the inside of us. What we're feeling, what we're struggling with, what we're trying to understand or work through. Even if we don't mean to be messy, venting turns into something else very quickly when the focus goes from healing to blame. When we start dragging people, making excuses, and zeroing in on everything that's outside of our control, it might feel honest, but it becomes empty really quickly. It's okay to name the tension. I'm not getting along with my boss. That person rubs me the wrong way. That's real. But if it turns into a 10-minute rant about how the coach blew the game or how unfair our boss is, that's not helping anyone. That's just spinning in circles, and what the Bible would call that is vanity. What Jesus says is this: "But I say unto you, every idle word that men shall speak, they shall give account thereof in the day of judgment." The question is this: are these words worthy of the calling that's been placed on our lives? Is the focus on how we feel, what we need, how we're trying to grow? Or has that spotlight shifted to how wrong they were and how right we think we are? Because blame is unworthy. Whining is unworthy. Bitterness and envy is unworthy. At the end of the day, our elevation is tied to our emphasis. If we focus on growth, we'll grow. If we focus on peace, we'll find it. If we focus on healing, God will move in it. Our focus always becomes our future. When we're trying to stay on that venting side of the line, we've got to watch our intention, watch our emphasis, but we've also got to watch our energy. Before we open our mouths, start typing the text, or dial the call, we've got to pause and check our vibe. Where's our head at? What's really on our heart? The Bible reminds us, as he thinketh in his heart, so is he. If wrath and vengeance are running the show, there's nothing that's going to come out of the vent session besides vanity. If our mindset is off, our message will be too. So here's the real question to ask ourselves before we let it out. Am I releasing pressure or just feeding the fire? Am I trying to calm down or am I hyping myself up to explode? The Bible says it this way: let nothing be done through strife or vainglory. Even if there's nothing wrong with letting off some steam, we've got to keep it real. If we're full of anger, anxiety, or heartbreak, and we're not in a space to talk clearly and constructively, maybe what we need isn't really a conversation. Maybe we just need a moment. A moment to sit still, to reset, to talk to God before we talk to anybody else. Because we don't make progress when we're pressed. We don't grow when we're grinding our gears. Remember that story in John 5 when Jesus asked the man at the pool of Bethesda, "Wilt thou be made whole? Do you want to be healed?" Jesus already knew he could heal the man. He just needed to know that the man was actually ready to be healed. The same thing applies to us. Before we vent, we've got to be real with ourselves. Do I want help or do I just want to be heard in my hurt? Am I asking for healing or am I just holding on to heat? Because if our spirit isn't in the right place, our speech won't be either. And if the vibe is off, the venting won't help. Another thing we got to keep in mind when we're venting is our appearance. Let's be honest for a second. One thing we're all really good at when we want to be is making excuses. And I don't mean that in a snarky or sarcastic way, but we know how to give context when it comes to ourselves and the things that we care about. A teenager will tell their parent, "Yeah, I failed the test, but so did everybody else." An employee will tell their boss, "I was late, but the traffic was insane this morning." A Warriors fan will still swear up and down we would have won in 2016 if Draymond didn't get suspended. We know how to build a whole narrative when we're defending ourselves. We become kings and queens of context, but that context doesn't actually carry the way we think. Because to the teacher, it's still an F in the grade book. To the manager, it's still a tardy on the job report. To the record books, the Cavs still beat the Warriors in 7. So when we pop off in the name of venting, we might think it's just stress. I needed to let it out. I was just worked up. But the people around us don't always see or hear that background. They don't hear the buildup. They just witness the blow up. What we call a vent, someone else might see as a meltdown. What we describe as letting off steam, someone else might call unstable. What feels to us like a vulnerable moment might sound to others like bitterness on the mic. The Bible warns us like this: abstain from all appearance of evil. So we've got to ask ourselves honestly, even if I'm venting, does it sound messy? Does it sound cruel? Does it sound like drama? If someone overheard me, would they say that sounds like healing or that sounds like hate? Because here's the thing, anger passes, disappointment fades, Situations blow over, but reputations are harder to fix. When we speak, we don't know who's listening, and we never know what version of us people will walk away remembering. Yes, find a safe space, vent, be honest, feel what we feel, tell the truth, but never paint a picture of ourselves that can't be taken down later. Because if we're not careful, our words won't just cost us peace, they might cost us our name. Now, after we've checked our intention, our emphasis, our energy, and our appearance, there still might be moments if we're not sure if we're venting or gossiping in real time. But here's what we can trust. Hindsight always helps us see the truth more clearly. When Jesus talked about false prophets in Matthew chapter 7, he said this, "You shall know them by their fruits. A good tree bringeth forth good fruit, but a corrupt tree bringeth forth evil fruit." In other words, the results either confirm or condemn the thing that's in question. If a tutor helps a C student become a B+ student, if a trainer helps someone lose 50 pounds in a healthy way, if a coach helps a player double their hitting percentage, we know they're legit because of what they've produced. And the same thing is true for us. If we get done venting and we feel clearer, calmer, and more ready to handle the situation on God's terms, that may have been a part of God's healing process. But if we leave the vent just as mad, just as bitter, and just as stuck on blame, excuses, and resentment, then maybe what we called venting wasn't really spirit-led. Because as deep and spiritual as we try to be, sometimes the simplest test is the realest one. If I'm venting, peace should start to rise. But if I'm gossiping, bitterness will just settle. Next time we finish a vent session, maybe we need to take a few minutes the next morning and write down how we really feel now. Maybe we should go to God and ask, Lord, did that conversation bring me closer to you or just deepen my frustration? Because at the end of the day, words are seeds. And sooner or later, they grow into something. So let's make sure our words grow into fruit and not into weeds.
I'm giving you all of me, all